thank you very much for coming. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to a new session of the Sustainable Leadership webinar series organized by Barcelona Culinary Hub in collaboration with the Culinary Institute of America. This collaboration aims to promote sustainable leadership within the gastronomic field, recognizing the importance of environmental and social responsibility in the food industry. At Barcelona Culinary Hub, we are firmly committed to fostering education on sustainability at all levels, aware of the urgency and relevance of this topic in the current context. On this occasion, we have the honor of hosting Katina and Kyle Connaughton, founders of the SingleThread Farm, the only 3 Michelin-starred establishment in Sonoma County, California, internationally recognized for its commitment to sustainability and culinary excellence. Katina Connaughton is a farmer and floral designer dedicated to sustainable agriculture and haute cuisine. As co-owner of head farmer of SingleThread, she leads initiatives promoting regenerative agricultural practices and the restoration of native habitats in the Northern California. Kyle Connaughton is a chef, educator, and author whose career has taken him work in renowned restaurants in Los Angeles, Japan, and the United Kingdom, where he served as head of research and development at the Fat Duck. In 2016, together with Katina, he opened SingleThread Farm, an integrated experience that combines gastronomy, hospitality, and respect for the environment, earning accolades such as Michelin Guide's Green Star for Sustainable Practices, La Liste #2 Best Restaurant in the World, and ranked 46 on the 50 Best Restaurant in the World 2024 list. Before giving the floor to our guests, we kindly ask to keep your microphones muted during the presentation to avoid interruptions, and you may use the chat function to set your questions, which will be answered at the end of the webinar. And now I hand over to Katina and Kyle Connaughton. Please, thank you very much.
Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Good
everyone.
Afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Hello. Good morning from California. It's a rainy day here in California. So yeah, thank you all for thank you Santi and the CIA and Christina for having us this morning. I'm really happy to speak with you all and tell you a little bit about what we do here in California. And so today we're just going to talk a little bit about what we do here at SingleThread and you know, a little bit more sort of professional look at behind the scenes of our operation. And we wanted to you know, talk through and explain a little bit about the work that we do more from the inside, like, as I said, rather than you know, just from the guest perspective, a little bit more of the you know, of the business, of the setup, and the mission, and the ethos. So today's topic was connecting food systems by telling the story of today, and we'll explain a little bit more about what that means. This idea of the story of today and how it pertains to what we do at SingleThread. So it was a very nice introduction. Thank you for what we do. This is just a little bit of an overview. We are a farm, a restaurant, and an inn. Katina runs our 24-acre, which is 10 hectares farm, and she's going to explain more about that. So I'll leave that there for now. And then we also have a restaurant, and then we have a very small inn as well, just 5 rooms. So kind of talk a little bit about the accolades and things, but we do say farm as a first, because for us the farm comes first. Everything that we do is based on what is coming from Katina's farm, and all of the work that we do in the restaurant and the inn reflects that work on the farm. So in terms of our food, it's very seasonal, farm-driven cuisine, as we're going to explain further. So we don't have any signature dishes on our menu. Things are always changing. Everything that we do is a real representation of not only the season, but really bringing guests into what is the farm. So as you can see from some of the dishes that are here, they really are telling this very sort of seasonal story. So it's not just the food on the plate, but really kind of showing, in the case on the left, when the grapes here, because we're in wine country, are in season, really sharing that. Then is a story about our coastline and the abalone and the sea urchin, where it's really a presentation of the tide pool of the ocean. Things that are really the sort of guests participate in. And then, furthest on the right is like bringing in that visual feeling of the farm through the dishes, not just the ingredients. We do have a background in traditional Japanese cuisine. While we're not a Japanese restaurant, a lot of our experiences was living and working in Japan, as you heard about a little bit into the introduction, both on the farming side and culinary side. So we do bring in a lot of feeling of the kind of the traditions of Japan in flavors and ingredients. But we do it in a way where we are really actually representing the terroir of California. So rather than importing and saying this is a Japanese cuisine, we actually take a lot of the philosophy of Japanese cooking and farming, and we apply that to where we are. So Japanese cuisine is very regional, it's very seasonal, and it has a lot of deep meaning behind that. So we take that same philosophy and we just apply that to where we are, so that's a very authentic representation of California. But sometimes guests, are like, oh, this, cuisine feels very Japanese, and often it is. You kind of have those flavor profiles, which we use because they very much support the natural flavors of the, in particular, the vegetables coming from our farm, rather than using heavy sauces and heavy preparations. We prefer a more sort of lighter approach. So yeah, Katina will talk a little bit about our farm, but this is our sort of focus on agriculture, and this is a photo of Katina's farm.
Yeah, there it is. It is such a privilege and a pleasure to be able to grow for the restaurant, but it definitely doesn't end there. While our main focus is growing for the restaurant, we have a responsibility to our community and to our environment as well. And as you can see, as Kyle mentioned, we're in wine country. We're surrounded here by grapes. We're able to bring a lot of biodiversity to the area, which is environmentally absolutely necessary here and everywhere. And we're growing all manner of culinary crops, cut flowers, herbs, perennials, really just trying to build layers of habitat to support the wildlife and really to protect us against any environmental shifts, which we've been experiencing a lot of. On top of that, we do a lot of community outreach as well through our CSA, which is our community supported agricultural offerings. And we do our part in really fighting against food insecurity here within our region. So the farm serves many purposes, but it all starts with being able to grow for the restaurant.
I talk a little bit about being surrounded by the grapes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is this kind of agricultural approach that we have, but also we have some really sort of important hospitality principles that we've focused on as well, about creating an experience designed around our guests' needs and a sense of time within a place. I think we hear very often with kind of this in the world of gastronomy and restaurants that are spread out all over the world, this idea of a sense of place. So if you're going to Noba in Copenhagen, you're getting this sort of sense of place within Scandinavia, or a restaurant in Japan, a real sense of place, and obviously in Barcelona as well, a real sense of place with the cuisine there. So we are also bringing that to where we are in Northern California, in wine country of California, but also the time within the place. So really kind of making you feel not only are you in California wine country, but you're there specifically in that time of the year. So that's why we don't have any signature dishes that stay on the menu. Whenever you come, you feel a real sense of that time within the place.
Yeah, there's a reason why we really wanted to root ourselves here specifically, and being able to anchor our guests into that sense of place by bringing the outdoors in, by really showcasing what the peak of the season is, whether it's from our field, our neighboring farmers, the sea, the landscape all around us is, it's just ideal to be able to do that.
And we also focus on the hospitality side, something more about genuine hospitality versus great service. And there's an important sort of distinction between those two things. Great service is being, the correct steps of service, making sure everyone has a fork when they need it, their water glass is full, these kinds of things in the restaurant that represent great service. But genuine hospitality is really about the guest experience and focusing on their needs, their wants, and their mood and what is happening there. So rather than thinking about our restaurant as a performance that the guests are an audience sitting in the there in our dining room as the sort of audience, and then we perform to them, it's really about focusing on them and the experience that they want to have, telling stories to a level that they may be interested in, and not following a script, and allowing our service team to really be who they are individually, rather than just reading a script and saying, this is this dish, it has these ingredients, and that's it. So it's really more about creating an experience that they want, rather than just focusing on having perfect service.
Yeah, it's not just about us. We get to create a space for guests to come in and share valuable time together and to create really meaningful memories. And that is something that we certainly don't take lightly.
One of the things that we do in that is I'm going to answer that question right now. We have an all-inclusive sort of more ticketing type system, which we're seeing is becoming more popular. Rather than coming in and ordering a menu and then having a bill, guests are pre-booking and pre-paying for that experience. So one, from a practical standpoint, they own that reservation and they show up for that reservation, and we don't, from a business standpoint, we don't have people not showing up or everything. They've already paid for that experience, like you would going to the theater or on an airplane or something like that. And then also it allows for them just to have that experience, and when they're finished, they just leave, and they don't have to feel like, okay, now this is the part where I'm the customer. They can really feel the whole time like I'm a guest, and we've got the transaction out of the way in advance, and now they can come and just enjoy that experience rather than waiting for the bill to come at the end. We also work on eliminating processes that detract from the experience. So part of that is what I just explained about having this all-inclusive nature of the experience. That's also true for our hotel. We have everything inclusive, including the breakfast, room service menu, anything that's in the room, like the mini bar and food and beer and wine and any of those things. So they just pay one price, and then when they check in, they don't have to give us their ID and give us their credit card, and we have to take a lot of time. We want to make sure that immediately upon arrival, they're starting to enjoy their experience, and that when they go into their room or they want something, they can just have it. And I'll explain a little bit more about the philosophy of sort of being more like you're in our home rather than in our business. And then that's also about creating thoughtful interactions with the guest before their experience. This is kind of building anticipation with them. So when they book with us, we then reach out and ask them questions about their dietary restrictions, their allergies, any food aversions, anything that they're celebrating, anything special that they want us to know. Do they want us to help them book appointments for wineries, or do they want to know where to go on a hike? So we have this time in between their booking and their arriving that we can actually begin the experience for them at that moment, rather than waiting for their arrival and starting. So by the time they get there, they've already developed a relationship. Sometimes guests even are like arriving with some small gift for someone who's been going back and forth with them for a few weeks, setting up a really great experience for a few days while they're up here with us, and not just in the restaurant. We're there to help them with anything that they want to do throughout their experience up in our region.
We had a question about the restaurant name.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll answer that.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's answer that at the end. So we kind of had this simple mission: place hospitality above all else, make everything a genuine and authentic experience, and this welcome to our home. And this is our entrance here. So guests are coming to the home of a chef and a farmer and this family that we've built up around our farming and our experience. And so everything is about creating an experience for them where they do feel like in our home. Sometimes a 3 Michelin star environment can feel very formal and feel very much like a performance. In a hotel, it can feel very transactional. We wanted you to feel that you're in our home. So if you're in your room and you want to enjoy the bottle of wine or a beer or a room service or breakfast, just like in our home, if you were staying at our home, we wouldn't say, oh, if you want a beer from the refrigerator, it's $14. You know, you are our home. And so we've separated the transaction from the experience.
I think it's just
guest.
also important to say that we didn't decide one day that we wanted this to feel as though it was our home. I mean, it truly is. We have dedicated our lives to culinary and hospitality and to agriculture, and so it's such a lifestyle for us. These aren't just jobs that we hold. It's truly a natural extension of who we are as humans and what we devote our energy to each and every day. So this truly is our home, and our team is our family, and to be able to share that with guests is, I think, just such a gift. So it's very genuine. It's really truly from the heart.
And our sort of culture internally, rather than saying, okay, everybody, everything has to be perfect tonight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're at a 3-star level. We focus on saying, hey, we're having a dinner party tonight, and these are the guests who are coming over to our home tonight. So it's just a different sort of way and mentality.
And also just the language of using the word guest. We are not calling our guests, they're not cover counts each night. They're guests. These are people who are believing in us to take time and out of their very busy lives to travel from wherever they live to come and see us so that we can create an experience for them.
Yeah.
So even the language around it is just, it's so important. It's so powerful.
Yeah, that's such an important point. It was like, we don't behind the scenes say packs or covers or any of these things, as Katina said, that changes someone from a human to a number. It's a really important way of sort of creating that culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the cuisine, we really focus on the multi-sensory aspects of the dining experience, which means that we're really creating a menus with a narrative approach. And we're going to show you a little video of what we're working on that explains a little bit more about what that means. But we're considering how does sight, sound, smell, touch and tactile, and story impact the guest experience. So it's not just about making great food. It's not just about putting ingredients on the plate because they're delicious together. We have a sort of different focus, and as I was saying, a sense of place and time within that place. So, for example, we, as you can see here, the top left photo is the tomatoes coming from Katina's farm. And when those are in season, we celebrate those tomatoes. And when they're not in season, we don't serve any tomatoes. We just focus on when they're in season. But as you can see from the dish that we've created, this particular dish is using the tomatoes in several different ways. So it goes for a dish of tomatoes to this celebration of, we want to show you the different varieties that she grows in different ways. And we want to bring the feeling of the farm into the restaurant. So not just taking them as chefs, manipulating these ingredients and putting them onto a plate in a beautiful way, but really actually like bringing the vines of the tomatoes so you can smell the tomato vine. You can pick the tomatoes just fresh right off and enjoy them as they are. And we harvest 7 days a week in the morning, and so that produce is harvested in the morning. It's in the kitchen that afternoon, and it's on the guest plate that night. So everything is as fresh as it possibly can be, and you can experience what it is to be in that moment. And so in this way, we're doing what we call is telling the story of today. So when guests come and dine with us, the story that we're telling them, the narrative that we have is this is today, this is this moment in Sonoma County on our farm, what is in its peak season, and you're experiencing that. So if you're coming, today on February 6th, you're experiencing exactly what it means to be here on February 6th. If you're coming on, June 21st, you're experiencing exactly what it means to be here on the summer solstice. So we're not thinking about the dishes in the cuisine. We're thinking about sharing what it is on the with the farm. So we think of the menu as a narrative. So 10 courses equals 10 chapters or 10 scenes. So if you think of a book, the individual chapters are covering various sort of topics in the story, and then the whole novel comes together in the end. Or in a film, you have all these individual scenes, and those scenes come together to tell a whole story. You can't just have the individual scenes that don't go anywhere to bring together a whole story, and you can't tell a story without having those individual scenes that bring that together. So we think of our menu in the exact same way a filmmaker may think about a film, or a composer may think about putting together a symphony, or that an author would think about putting together a book.
And just to add to that very quickly, I mean, even in that floral design were tomato vines, and there's just really something to be said about kind of challenging our perception of conventional beauty and being able to utilize these crops truly from root to shoot, and to be able to like bring about a new narrative of appreciating beauty and design in some new and unconventional ways.
Sorry, that's just getting crazy. So again, going back to the hospitality and the story that we tell at SingleThread, in what Katina was just mentioning about, the floral and how we're sort of telling this like visual story. Our feeling is that in everyone's busy lives these days, we're very disconnected from nature and from the seasons, because now we can go into stores all around the world and we can find tomatoes and strawberries any time of the year in any place.
Like all manner of floral materials you can get any time of the year, any time of the season.
So we've sort of lost the sense of what it means to be, seasonal. I mean, we've spent quite a bit of time in Spain, and of course, you are very much more connected than many of the other places in the world. But still, we now have this convenience, and we don't have the same sense of the seasonality and our connection to nature anymore. So, as Katina was saying, we want to bring that feeling, back to the guests. And part of our telling the story of today is not just through the food, but everything that you feel there. So this is how we begin the meal at SingleThread. And so when guests arrive, they sit down to this course. So these are two different examples from two different times of the year, and you can see that the flowers that Katina is using from the farm are changing. The dishes are changing. This is different every day. This is a collaboration between the farmers, the florists, and the chefs at SingleThread. So what we decided for hospitality to do is to have this ready for the guests on the table right when they arrive. And that is a bit about the hospitality as well, in that we want to have the guests arrive. Maybe they're a little bit nervous about the experience. So when they walk in and they see that this is waiting for them on the table, it shows them that they're here to have fun, that they're here to relax and have a good time. It also begins telling that story of today immediately. And it also considers something from the guests that maybe because they knew they were having a 10-course menu tonight, they didn't eat lunch. So they come in, they're very hungry, and they don't want to wait 40 minutes for their first course to arrive. They're getting hungry and hungry. So allows them to begin eating right away. And it allows them to break the ice at the table, because some of these dishes are meant to share. And it's an experience rather than just an individual plate. Most times in fine dining, everything comes on, everyone gets their own individual plate, but this is an experience to share. So you begin creating a memory and having some sharing from the very beginning, and it sets the scene for the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's so great that moment to interact with your guest and to have this like multi-sensory moment and ability to seek out what's in front of you and have those moments of discovery is just it's really fun to watch for us. And as a guest, we've of course had the pleasure of being able to dine and be guests ourselves. It's so joyous and so it's very unique, and I can't imagine us doing anything any other way. And it's just such a beautiful snapshot of everything that is just at the peak of season right now. So it really once again, it roots you to your sense of place and in that exact moment in time.
Yeah, that's a really good point about this. Like the dishes which are on there are changing all the time, are this like snapshot. And it's a way too for us in the kitchen, we say to say hello and goodbye to different ingredients, because maybe she does have the very first tomatoes of the season are starting to come in, but they're not abundant enough to put a full dish on. So we can put a very, very small dish and we can really convey that excitement to the guests. The tomato season is just starting. These are the very first tomatoes. We only have enough for you to have one or two. They're coming in abundance, and our excitement becomes their excitement, and it also shows the reality of like, oh, they're not just available all the time. They don't just come out of a factory. Like this is something to be celebrated, and something to be shared. And that, too, is our kind of move to more plant-based cooking. That doesn't mean that we're a vegetarian or vegan restaurant. About 10 to 15 of our guests do request a vegetarian or vegan menu. But, I've done a lot of work with Greg Drescher, who set up this call today on more, plant-based and plant-forward cooking. But what's important for us is that we're putting the farm first in the creative process. So meaning that historically, classically, chefs have said, first of all, they say, what do I want to cook? And then they go and then they get those ingredients that they need to cut dish that they have in their mind. And then oftentimes, chefs classically have started with the protein. They start with the center of the plate. Sorry for the dogs barking. They start with the center of the plate. So they say, okay, I want to do a dish of beef. I want to think about the beef first, and then I'll think about the sauce and the vegetables around that. But for us, because of our farm, we're looking first at the vegetables. What is in season? And so we may serve some protein with that, but we're saying, okay, I want to do a dish of cauliflower, and that it's going to have these things, and then we'll also have some crab with that. So it's not that we don't use any proteins, but it means that we put the priority onto the vegetables, onto the produce, and we explain that we're showing that to the guests in a way that they feel the value in the produce. Because it used to be, and it kind of still, and it still is that the guests see the value in the protein. Oh, okay, this is a duck dish, and this is a caviar dish, or this is a crab dish. These things are valuable, and the vegetables are there to go with that. And we try to flip that around and say the value here is on the produce, and we serve these other things are more of like the flavor and the texture that may come with that.
And I mean, the value is in a perfectly slowly grown crop that is harvested at the peak of its season, and it's so nutrient dense, because nutrient density and flavor go hand in hand, and like that to me is just so valuable. It's the luxury of being able to grow slowly and gently and in full accord with the season, and to be able to have so few miles in between the restaurant and the farm itself, to be able to bring our guests each and every day these extremely fresh and vibrant vegetables.
Yeah, to just answer the question that just came up, is the farm providing all of the vegetables for the farm, fruit, vegetables, and stuff?
No.
No,
And
mostly, but there's a reason why we never want it to be 100%. But Katina she can explain a little bit about the communication between the farm and the restaurant, and within that, she can answer that question.
We're in this really beautifully supportive agricultural community, and we learn a lot from one another. We lean on one another. There is a lot of diversity in our growing regions here, and so actually, and what we're able to grow where we are may not be the same for some of our fellow farmers, but they're able to grow certain crops that we may not have success with. So the community of farming here is really rich, and it's just very supportive. And so we want to lift each other up. We never want to grow 100% of what the restaurant is using, because we want to be able to support that farming community.
So do you want to explain a little bit about how our cycles work between the farm and the kitchen?
So developing a relationship and a language between the farm and the restaurant has been really unique, and there's been a lot of learning curves throughout these 8 years that we've been open. We started the first farm a couple of years as the restaurant was being built, so we had a little bit of a runway to be able to develop this language. But it's really important because things are changing in real time, and we really want to be able to express to the chefs and to the rest of the team what exactly is coming from the farm, and kind of create a bit of a picture as to like where we were in the past, where we are currently, and then of course what is going to be available moving forward. So we have different platforms of communication for that. Do we want to talk specifically about Slack?
I think just maybe it's like how chefs request to you, and then you move forward with your work.
Yes, so we put our availability out to the chefs, and the chefs will come out to the field regularly to connect in real time with their food systems, because I think there's something really incredible about being able to see how a crop is growing, and to be able to visualize what the use could be, and maybe to see something really creative that could be done that maybe we're not thinking of, and vice versa. So we'll let the chefs know what is available. Chefs will place their orders each and every day, and then the beauty of being able to have this very open and unique communication with the chefs is that sometimes things happen very quickly and will change overnight. For example, we could receive a frost overnight. Chefs might be expecting something and we're not able to provide it the next day, but what we are able to do, because we work with chefs who are incredibly creative and able to pivot as needed, is we're able to provide substitutes for whatever may not be available any longer due to that frost or a pest infestation. And because you guys are so incredible, you're able to utilize the product that is on the farm without panic. So we're able to communicate in real time and avoid any of these disruptions.
And the way that the year works for us is, chefs we're saying, hey, and the farmers are asking us, which varieties do you like? What kind of quantities of this crop would you want for next year or next season or whatever it is? And so we're thinking ahead of what we like, what we would like to use. And then they go off and they're growing, and they also want to experiment. Katina's always experimenting with her team, new varieties and new things. But then ultimately, when it comes time for the harvest, they are, they're dictating what it is on the menu. Katina's saying, here is what's in season. Here's what it's at its peak. Here's how much we have. Now consider, what your what your dishes are. So
yeah, we have to also be very mindful of our plantings and just really keeping very good record keeping and timing with them, because we're not growing just to market. So we don't want just an overabundance of anything to sell directly to market. We have to keep a super steady supply so that the restaurant is able to rely on us and we're able to supply the demand of the restaurant. So we do a lot of very calculated succession plantings to ensure that we are able to get that product to the kitchen throughout consecutive seasons.
So what that succession plantings means is, rather than just a farmer planting all of the crop all at one time, and then wanting to harvest it all basically at one time and take it to market and sell it. As Katina was saying, is we're doing small harvests 7 days a week. So we need many things in small quantities every day. So they have to really plan to make sure that we don't get to a place to where we say like, hey, you have everything all at one time, and we're not able to take that and process it. So it's a much different way of farming when the farm's customer is a kitchen that's open 7 days a week. It's a much different approach. So kind of a little bit about how that drives our creativity. Sort of this point is that because we are being driven by exactly what's coming from the farm, and as we've established that dictates to what we're creating in the kitchen, we are incorporating that into our creative process. So this is shows a little bit of a story of something that we set out to do, which was to have one of these squash or the courgette, as you would say, blossoms for every guest. So if you see the dish on the left, you can see that there's one tempura fried blossom that's stuffed with a fish mousse on there. And we said, we want, during the summertime, we want every guest that comes in 7 days a week, the 64 guests that come every night, to have one of these blossoms. And that's a really sort of challenging thing to have. They're very delicate. They're very specific on their timing. And so the farmers had to figure out a way to grow these so that we could have every day be harvesting 70 perfect blossoms and serve them that night. They don't keep overnight. They're very fragile. And so in order to do that, they had to calculate exactly what they needed to grow. But also as a result, what comes with the blossom, as you see on the right, is what we call summer squash here. So we have that and in different varieties. So because of wanting these flowers, of course, we also want the squash, but they come in abundance with the flowers. So we have to also create dishes that utilize them in the abundance that they have. So in this case, the flower is driving the need, and the fruit is also the result. And so if you see on this dish, we have all the different baby, if you zoom in, can zoom in on that, you have all the baby different like squash that's represented on the dish in different ways. So we're also sharing with the guests that's different varieties. But then some of them grow really big faster than we can harvest them. So now we have these very large summer squash. So some we can eat at our own family meal, some we can share with the food banks to help with food insecurity. And then some of them, as you can see, that the sauce that's in the copper pourer on the top is made from the puree of the squash that get larger. So in this way, the agricultural reality of the situation is what's driving our creativity. So the dish isn't myself as a chef or as our chef saying, what dish do I want to make? It's starting from a point of agriculture and saying, okay, what do we have and in what quantities? And how can we create a dish that accurately and responsibly reflects what's happening on the farm? So in doing that, of the story that I just, told, is we're also looking at ways to incorporate guests into the story. So in this particular dish in the center, you can see this is like a cart that we bring to the table. We show the basket. We do an action in front of the guests, and we explain not only our cooking, but we tell them a story and have them imagine what's happening in nature and share that to them in a way, rather than just putting the plate in front of them where only we know the story of what happened. They get to enjoy the results of all of that hard work, but they don't really understand where things come from. So we find ways to tell a story to kind of show them in a way that then they become part of that story and that experience.
Yeah, we're just a small part of an entire ecosystem around us, and what a gift to be able to have these products in hand, but also to be able to tell the stories of our larger community that influence us and inspire us so much each day.
But is there any questions that we can answer?
Oh, yes, we do.
We do and we don't. The question is, do you accept stagiaire? You know, the rules and the laws are very, very specific now. So, you know, the days of being able, and I don't know if it's the same in Spain as it, when I was working in Europe, it was okay, but having unpaid stagiaires visit has become all over the world a really big problem. But sometimes we can have, if someone's coming from a business and they're being paid and they're coming just for professional development, we can do that. Yeah.
We also do pay our stagiaires for those who do come and spend time with us.
Yeah, for those who are coming for a
position,
we can. But if someone's coming from a professional organization and they want to come have training,
we'd love to welcome you.
Any other questions at all? I think too, you can come off mute if you want to ask anything.
Yes. Juan Pablo?
Yeah, Juan Pablo,
Hi,
if you want
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm from Bogota, Colombia, and I heard about you a long time ago. First of all, I admire you a lot because this work that you're doing with the farm, it's really amazing, and to create all these beautiful experience. Sorry, for the guest, it's amazing. Also, I would like to know how you connect. In my case, I'm studying the master in gastronomy marketing. So I would like to know how you connect all this experience and everything that you do with the guest in the restaurant. How do you translate it into your marketing strategies, or how people can know about you and feel relate about the philosophy that you have in the restaurant using marketing strategies without going to the restaurants?
Sure, that's a really great question. By the way, we love Bogota and Leonora Espinosa, such a beautiful town. We've been a few times.
No, it was my boss, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we love her.
So great.
So that's a really good question. I think it is that we don't do any like actual marketing like paid marketing, and we're really using social media and the newsletter and the journalists and things to tell that story. And I think what we do is we really focus on trying to tell these stories for the guests through that sort of social media marketing that are difficult sometimes to tell in the dining room, because you're sitting in the dining room, the experience is happening, the food is coming. So we want guests to get a feel for what's important to us and how these things work and being excited to come and eat and experience it by really seeing through the marketing what Katina is doing on the farm, what is our philosophy. And then when you come and experience, you can feel very immersed in it. And we've noticed that a lot of guests, they do a lot of research and they're watching all these things. And so when they come in, they already know what's happening, and they can go a little bit deeper into the story of what we're doing, because they already have a connection to what's happening. It's not a requirement, but we do find that happens. And rather than focusing on special pricing and discounts or whatever types of things, we really focus on trying to use the marketing to tell the story and get people excited about not just like, oh, beautiful plated food, the cuisine, but what's actually happening on the farm. Yeah, like what is behind what we do.
And like I was saying, we're a part of a greater ecosystem, and the film that we were going to show you is really storytelling. It's telling their stories. We only have so much time at the table when we're presenting a dish to guests to tell a story. So our marketing and these films that we've been putting together are also our ability to be able to take that story further and go deeper into it, so that the guests can get a sense as to how large this ecosystem is and how much thought and care goes into it.
Okay, thank you very much. All of this makes me admire you even more, even the most. I hope someday I can visit you in SingleThread, and also you're welcome here in Colombia anytime. Leo used to be my boss. That's why I heard about you. Um, I used to work with her like 2 years ago. But so if sometime you're coming to Bogota, please, I'll be waiting for you because this
Okay,
thing that
thank
you're
you.
doing
We
is
Thank
look
you.
really
forward
We
nice.
love
to
it there.
we
She's
look
very
forward to
inspiring.
returning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
We
uh,
have
are you
another.
Asian inspired, or what style of cooking do you do? We did cover that pretty extensively in the beginning. I don't know if you heard the first part of there. We do have a lot of Japanese inspiration into our cooking. We lived and worked in Japan for many years, and we apply that philosophy of Japanese cooking, but to our California ingredients. So we're not a Japanese restaurant, but it is definitely an inspiration for the style of cooking that we do. How many guests do we serve daily? We have
Well, that's okay.
generally, yeah, no problem, Diana. We have generally is 64 guests is our typical night at SingleThread. So we have 48 seats in our restaurant, and we begin. You get in Spain, you will think this is crazy, but we start serving at 4:00 p.m. So we have a first seating at 4:00 p.m. It's more like a late lunch than it is really, for dinner for guests that want to be able to eat early, not have a lunch, eat at 4 p.m. and finish earlier. And then we seat all the way up to 8:45. And how do you manage to make all of the operation economically sustainable? Yeah, that's that's the
That's tough.
challenge, right? It's
Mhm.
our farm. It's a large investment into into the farming and growing and the practices that Katina does, which are very slow, with nature organically. It's very difficult, and we're also in a very expensive area of California. So if you saw on that photo of our farm, we're surrounded by wine grapes, and you can get so much more money for grapes than you can for vegetables. So the land is priced for the vineyards, but it's very good agricultural land. And we also do sell some of our produce to some local restaurants. We have a farm store, and so that's really the challenge, is making the agricultural side become because it's all one business. So trying to get all those things to work together. We have the hotel, which economically has the best economics, and that helps to support the other programs that we're doing. But yeah,
But
it's
it's
challenging.
constantly a work in
Yeah.
progress.
How many people work in the kitchen and dining room? So we have in total, the culinary staff is 35. In the dining room, we have somewhere 20 something people. Not all of the chefs are in the kitchen at the same time. We are open 7 days a week. We have breakfast for the inn. We have prep. So in the service time to serve the 64 guests, generally we have 18 in the kitchen, and about 12 to 14 that are in the dining room at that time. But our total team, our total company is actually 150 people between the farm, the administration, and the development kitchen and everything. So it's quite a large team for a small
But
restaurant.
the farm also is like it's a pretty small but impactful team. We have 6 to 7 full time, and then we hire during our very busy season. We have about 3 seasonal hires, and we do everything by hand. No tractor work. Everything
No
is
machinery.
like hand scaled farming. So it is a lot of work, and it requires a very dedicated team to do this work. They've got to love what they do, and we see it every day. The environmental impacts that we're making, the ability to build habitat, and to bring that biodiversity to this grape growing region. We would make a lot more money if we grew grapes, but we've got enough people around us doing that.
And then so Sylvia's question is, how is your storytelling and your customer journey reflected in your spaces? How is the scenery of your architecture? So we built the building for our restaurant, so we were able to design it in the way that we wanted. We have rooftop gardens on our 3rd floor, so the guests arrive and they go up and have aperitifs in the garden before they come down. Our kitchen is fully open. Sorry you didn't see that in the video, but so we're interacting with the guests. So it's a feeling like more like you're coming into a home, like you would come into the kitchen at a dinner party and talk with whoever's cooking, and it's very open in that way. So this kind of storytelling and this feeling of the home is very much reflected in the architecture. And then Patricia's asking about the ingredients. Have you grown ingredients that you never thought it will be possible?
I think we enter into everything with an open mind and an open heart. So I don't know that we never thought it would be possible, but we are able to grow a lot of diversity in our crops, and we grow a lot of Asian varietals, specifically from Japan, and then of course beyond. So we've had many a travel to Spain and to South America, and we derive so much inspiration from everything that you guys are doing as well. So we try to bring that global flair into our field, and we're able to grow just so many incredible crops, and it's just so exciting. Nothing stokes the fires of creativity for our chefs, unlike bringing them a beautiful just array of produce that is from the field and all different colors and textures, and really just these crops from all around the world. So we're able to grow a lot. We feel very privileged to be able to do so.
Yeah, being in California means that we can grow all year round, and as Katina said, there's so many different things that we can grow here, and she said that's a big part of the reason that we're here. I just someone asked for the Instagram page. I just put SingleThread's Instagram in the chat. Is there any chance to stage with you on the service or management areas? Yeah, we do have, as I was saying before, it's very sensitive about the staging for free and everything in this country, like other places. But yeah, it's possible. And thank you, Matthew from Hyde Park. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing this time with us today. We'll figure out a way to get the video to everyone who participated today, so you can kind of watch that piece. And yeah, we're actually about to leave. Well, we're at home right now. We're leaving. We're going to Park City, Utah, to do a 2-week residency out there right now. So we're about to start driving out into the snow. So.
Okay, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to Katina and Kyle Connaughton for sharing their vision and knowledge and passion with us. We know that not only transforms the gastronomic landscape, but also inspires an entire generation of professionals. We hope you have enjoyed this session and that the ideas shared inspire you on your professional journey. Thank you for joining us and for your interest in such relevant topics in the future of gastronomy. Thank you very much, Kyle and Katina, for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much for sharing time with us. Thank you all for also doing your part in being the good change that is needed in this world. We appreciate your time today and look forward to sharing more with you in the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.